Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Trudell, and I am a wife, a nurse, a mother, but most importantly, a follower of Jesus Christ. On this channel, I share the love of Christ through encouragements, discussions, and testimonies with an intention to motivate and inspire. If this is something that sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe and be blessed. So, I grew up in a single parent home. My father visited. My mother was a working woman. She was very independent. She was loving. She was such a pleasant soul. So my mom became ill when I was in third form. That was like around 13, thereabout, 13, 14. So she became sick, and she was sick for a little over 2 years. She gave her life to Christ. She served. She was in the choir. I remember she would be on stage singing, and I would show up late to church, and she gives me this eye. Like, she would say if she were the pastor, she would send me back home for being late so many times at church. But thank God, pastors don't send you back home. But she served Christ, and she was such a loving person. We had a good relationship. It was really good. We would talk about anything. My relationship with my dad, he would visit, but it was more of when daddy is coming, you had to be disciplined, you had to be well behaved, you had to speak a certain way when daddy's around, you had to sit properly at the table. It was that kind of thing. So we didn't have that much of a communication, a father-daughter communication. So my mom was unwell, and she became really ill into like the third, I was in third form, and unfortunately she passed away. And when my mother died, I was broken. I felt like God, how could you do this? I felt like God was so unfair to me. And I even thought to myself, like, you knew the situation, God. Like, you could have taken my father instead of my mother. And I know this sounds really bad, but it was my true thought at the time. But I thank God that He is such an amazing God. And in Romans 6:28, it says, "For all things, not some things, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose." I would not have known at that time that any of it was working for my good. I thought that this was the worst thing that could ever happen. God, you took my mother. I am upset. My life is not going to be the same. This is the end of everything. But I tell you, it's been more than 20 years, and God has kept me. I turned away from Him, and He kept me. He protected me, even when I did things that were against Him. And God is such a loving Father that He takes care of us, He protects us. And over the years, one thing that I have learned is that I thought that my mother could fix everything. I thought that she could prevent everything. So many times when I went through situations, I said to myself, well, if my mother was here, this wouldn't happen. If my mother was here, I would not be tolerating this. If my mother was here, I would not feel like this. But over the years, God showed me that He was the one that was with me, that He is my source, He is my strength. And we don't realize that when we put anybody in front of God, we're making them an idol. Anything or any person that we put in front of God, that thing or that person has now become an idol. And God's word tells us that we should have no other God before Him. His word tells us that idol worship is not of Him. So I have come to know God for myself over these years, despite my mother hasn't been there. I have come to know God as a good father. And I thank God that He does not answer all of our prayers, or that He's a God that does not adhere to all of our feelings and all of our emotions. Because today, my father, my earthly father, and I have such a good relationship. And that's one of the best things that has happened over these years. And I really thank God that in that moment when I was hurting and when I felt like God was unfair and when I wished that He would have taken my father, I'm so grateful that He didn't. Because my father is alive today and we have such a better relationship. And God is awesome. And I just want to encourage somebody today that whatever you are going through, whatever it is, however bad it is, God is there with you. His word says in Deuteronomy 31, it says that He is with you. He goes with you. He goes before you. He will never leave you. He will never leave you. So in those situations where it feels like you're walking alone, God is there. In those situations that seem painful, God is there. In those situations that seem unfair, God is there. Over these years, the person that I have become is not because of my mother, but it's because of God. Everything that I experienced after my mother's death has strengthened me to become the person that I am today. I am a better mother because of my mother, the person that she was. But even in her absence, I've been able to become the mother that I am because of God. I am today the wife that I am because of God, because of some experiences that I have gone through that have made me into the person that I am. And so in order for gold to be the beautiful, wonderful gold that it is, it has to go through fire. It has to go through heat. It has to go through some things that are uncomfortable for it to become as bright and shining, as beautiful as it is. So as I sit before you today, this is my encouragement to you. Whatever you're going through, however painful it is, however you see God to be unfair in this situation, just know and stand on His word that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. Be strengthened, be encouraged, and know that God is with you. He hasn't forgotten you.